Okay, a lot to talk about this hour as President Trump gathers his Security Council around the table today in the Situation Room. We are watching what will happen next after Israel struck Iran overnight. They killed top Iranian military commanders, hit nuclear scientists and sites. Iranian state media says Israel strikes hit several cities, including the capital of Tehran. We've seen this before in past Israeli strikes on Iran, but this time Republicans and Democrats agree this conflict could escalate if Iran-backed supporters join Iran forces. So Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu looked at all of the chess pieces, and he went before the mic and he said he had no choice. Israel's ambassador to the UN had this to say in the last hour.
What's more, Israel uncovered clear evidence that the Iranian regime was planning a surprise attack in coordination with their proxies. They had planned to invade from all sides, with thousands of terrorists and thousands of projectiles.
All right, so we have team coverage on the latest developments with CBS Middle East correspondent Courtney Kealy in New York, Eleanor Watson at the Pentagon, and CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang on the White House North Lawn. So let's begin with you, Weijia. How is the administration responding to all of those revelations there in Israel's plan to move on Iran?
Well, Reed, at this very hour, President Trump is meeting with his National Security Council, which of course includes his top national security advisors, including the Vice President, the Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who is also the acting National Security Advisor, the Defense Secretary, all the big players that you would imagine to really go through the situation, assess it, and closely monitor any developments, because even though the U.S. is adamant and continues to stress that this was not an American-involved operation, certainly the calculations could change at any moment depending on how Iran responds and retaliates. And so we will expect to get some sort of a readout after this meeting. It's the first time that he is meeting in person with the entire National Security Council. Of course, he was following this and briefed last night, Reed, as this was all unfolding.
Well, and the president is also extending what looks to be on social media an ultimatum to Iran. What do you see there from the White House on that ultimatum?
Yeah, the president is trying to signal that there is still hope left for a deal. Remember, a sixth round of talks was already on the books between his Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, and the Iranians for Sunday. And the White House says that that is still moving forward as planned from the U.S. side. Now, the question is whether Tehran is going to come to the table given these developments, and whether it believes that the U.S. was in fact not involved and did not help coordinate this massive effort on the part of Israel. So that is what the president is signaling. He's saying there's still time to reach a deal. He wants to achieve a deal, but Reed, we should also point out that he is the one that pulled the U.S. out of the comprehensive nuclear deal that was brokered under the Obama administration when he first came to the White House back in 2017. And so, you know, the terms of that deal are still murky. And again, whether Iran is still willing to sit at the table, also in question.
CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang watching this one closely there at the White House. Thank you so much for that update. All right, so now let's go to CBS News Middle East reporter Courtney Kealy. Courtney, you watch that region all the time. It is your bread and butter. What have you heard from the people of Iran about that strike?
Well, the people of Iran, it's a complicated population, and some people are not sad to see the Iranian regime hit this hard. I will say the structure of the Iranian regime, the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei is still in place, but the Iranian Revolutionary Guard has been decimated. A new top leader of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard that immediately took the leadership place after last night's strikes, killed the other one, just wrote a letter saying that they are not going to put up, this is an act of war against Israel, calling it a child-killing regime, a baby-killing regime. A lot of talk from the Iranians. However, not a lot of action. The Israeli strikes have started again. I've been seeing through a source that there's huge billowing smoke, unconfirmed, but coming out of Iran's largest oil refinery. Strikes have started again in Tehran. Some of those were targeted by drones, Mossad in country, that had come in and set up its own covert kind of military base where they launched all those drones. Drone warfare is a big new kind of warfare. We've seen that in Ukraine. We're seeing it now on the ground with Israel. It's blanketed. Israel is not pulling its punches. They are going all out. Prime Minister Netanyahu, this is something that will probably continue tonight, and we will maybe expect some ongoing through the weekend. It really depends on how far they can go. It does not look like they've hit rocket arsenals as well. That's the news coming out of Iran. I'll just say one thing lightly. I mean, it's terrible, the civilian casualties, this kind of concussion effect, this kind of in these airstrikes is traumatizing and devastating for all of the population, and it's terrible. However, there are people that want to see the end of the regime. There are people that up until this point used to refer to Netanyahu as Uncle Benny. And I am hearing that somebody's husband, a source of mine, is sitting in Tehran right now, pouring smuggled vodka into their coffee and celebrating. So
Wow.
not all with, you have to remember that people speak for themselves, and they have been the ones that have been under this abusive regime since 1979, since the 80s, watching them build proxies that are all now gone. So you're not going to see Hezbollah necessarily launching with full strength on Israel from their southern border. You're not going to see a regime in Syria that's supportive of Iran. You're not going to see Iraqis necessarily risk their Shia-led government and their peace now, even though it's the Shia majority, to support the Ayatollah. So we really have to see how the region goes. Everybody's tense. Flights have been canceled throughout the region, and the Gulf is also very vulnerable, like places like Bahrain, where the U.S. Fifth Fleet is. USS destroyers are out and have been. So a lot of moving parts right now. But right now, it's inside the country. Mossad is inside the country, and they've hit residential buildings to take out military leaders. They've hit military depots. They've hit the major oil refinery that remains unconfirmed but looks very likely according to my sources. And like I said, some Iranians want to see this regime gone. Of course, the big question is, would that actually happen? Will Netanyahu go that far? He's been bracing for this kind of operation for as long as I've been covering the region, and especially since 2011 when he went to the UN Security Council with that Acme bomb, saying that was the red line of Iran, hitting that no-go Iranian enrichment. So doesn't look like the talks are going to happen on Sunday. President Trump is still saying he wants them, but really an act of war is being declared from Iranians, from the Iranian regime.
Interesting that you see the potential strike of oil facilities. That speaks to Iran's economy and economic power. It looks like, if that's true, Israel is hitting them not only with that nuclear threat, but also trying to hit them economically as well. Thank you so much for that conversation. We hope to see you back here very soon on CBS News 24/7. So let's go live to the Pentagon, where we find CBS News reporter Ellee Watson. So what could this strike mean for the Middle East and the United States? We, of course, know the Trump administration has said they don't want to be drawn into this. They were not a part of this, but also the United States backs Israel militarily. We have the tools to go deeper into those underground bunkers. What are you hearing?
Yeah, so what we've heard from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is that this is more of a campaign. We should expect days of strikes and then potentially days of retaliation from Iran. The U.S. was not assisting or involved in these strikes, according to U.S. officials, but what U.S. officials are concerned about is if Iran follows through on their vows, their threats to retaliate against not only Israel, but against the United States. The U.S. has around 40,000 U.S. troops across the Middle East, including 3,000 in Iraq, 1,000 in Syria, and those troops in Iraq and Syria are particularly vulnerable because of they're within a few minutes flight of Iranian ballistic missiles should Iran follow through on some of these threats. This is what officials at the Pentagon are concerned about, even if they did not participate in the strikes with Israel last night.